Okay, good morning. So we're up to Shin Tes Vov Seif Tes, working through the halachas of Ohel. Today we're going to cover different types of beds. Back in the day they would have these sort of four-poster beds and also sort of beds with one beam across, like a canopy. So we're going to be discussing those, how they work in terms of Ohel on Shabbos. But first, Seif Tes. Mishameres Shetoilin Oisoloses Boshmarim. You've got some sort of sieve. You put on top of a pot or something. Losses boshmarim lesanon. You put some shmarim, some sort of sediment in to drain it, and the liquid comes through. Moischin pia lekol tzad, and you spread over this mishameres, this sieve-like thing over the top. Choshev asiyas ohel va'osel intoisa. This particular construction is like an ohel, and therefore you can't stretch it out in this way. So Mishnah Berurah explains what it's like. He says in Lamed Vav, he says Venira. It seems like it's also not exactly clear what it looks like. Venira the also kamin sak shekorin loigin zak. It's some sort of cover. V'hu rochov. It's wide. Or pasuach lamala. It's very sort of open at the top. V'sosum v'chodud lemata, and it's closed and it's sort of sharp and pointed at the bottom. So imagine like a funnel that you've suspended over the top of a pot. And the bottom end, the sharp pointed end, is in the kli, and that's where the liquid is going to come through. And the top, which is much broader, covers the whole kli. Lekli v'osu b'ohel, and therefore it comes out. It's like a roof on a kli, and it's therefore ohel-like v'osu midrabanan. So this particular construction is a problem of ohel midrabanan. But if you're just spreading it like directly over the top of the pot, imagine just like a cover. You're sort of putting a top of a kli, like a lid of a kli, and you're just stretching it over there, then that's not a problem. Al eze yosed of a kli, of a beli kli tachteha, you're just stretching it on some sort of it's on a peg, it's hanging from a peg, and you've got a kli underneath it, so it's not properly on top of the kli. Dafilu oil aray lechoshev there. It's not even considered an oil aray. V'kolshkein demuta litlis kli b'yes, and certainly you can just hang the kli on the yoset. Okay, Yud. Now to understand Yud, it's worth just having a quick look in the Gemara. The Gemara says, this is all based on the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Lamed Ches. So the Gemara says there, Toni Rami Bar Yechezkel, Talis Kefula Lo Yeoseh. You shouldn't make a tent formed by a Talis Kefula, which is like a folded talis. V'im Osa Pata Aval Osa. But if you do make it, it's Pata Aval Osa. And the way the Gemara describes it, and then the way the Mefarshim explain it, it's a four-poster bed. So you've got a beam across one way and a beam across another way, and you're spreading over a canopy, sort of a cover on top of it, and then you sleep underneath it. So that is much more of an ohel. If, however, and then the Gemara carries on, but if you've got part of the cover already on, at least the tefach, then to stretch it further, there's no problem, because that's Mosif al Ohel Arai, which we've said all along is no problem. So to construct it from the outset is a problem, but to extend it is okay. So that's going to be Sif Tes. Sif Yud. Sif Yud Aleph is on the next one. It is Kuf Lamed Ches on the base. There the Gemara says Kilas Chasonim Mutal in Toisa or Mutal Parka. Now there we're talking about a single beam going across, and you've got like a wigwam. Imagine sort of that sort of shape. And there we say it's better, and the reason of course is because you haven't got a thickness of a tefach in the gag. And once you haven't got a gag tefach, it's less of an oil and much easier in halacha. So let's take a look. So Yud. Talis kafula. So this is the four-poster bed. Shehoyu aleh chutin shehoyu tlui bohem erev Shabbos. And you've got some threads which were suspended from it on erev Shabbos. Mutal in toisa or mutal lefarka v'chein aparoiches. So let's take a look. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Shenoista al hamoid. You've put it on top of a pole. Hanosim be'shnei ksolim, which is sort of stuck between two walls. U'shnei roshi hakefim u'shlosh magin la'aretz. And the material is hanging down to the ground. V'nichnas ben shnei k'tzois v'yoshim pnei hachama. And you sleep underneath it to protect you from the sun. V'yo also lasos came b'Shabbos to mikri oil aray. So to construct this sort of this, like I described, four posters is a problem of oil aray or pata aval osa. because it's only oil arai, not oil keva, it's a drabon, it's potav losa. Kamavu b'sivches. Ubol loima. If the cover, the sheet or the cloak or whatever is covering it from Erev Shabbos, and you've got strands coming out, which effectively is the way you pull it backwards and forwards. You're allowed to extend it on the length of the pole, which on the length of the thing. You're allowed to do that. Why? It's very easy to move the cloth which is covering this bed. It's as if you've got a covering of a tefach already on Erev Shabbos. And that's the rule always. If you're moisif al arai, if you're just extending it, then it's allowed. Because of Magen Avraham, the Mairi she'acha prisosa she'acha lo yeh begaga milmala rechav tefach. And we're talking about a situation that after you've opened it, you haven't got on the roof more than a width of a tefach. And not only in the top you haven't got a tefach, but even it's not a very sharp incline where you've got a tefach within the top 3 tefachim. It's flatter. And then, because if it was a tefach there, then it's got a din of an oil kavua, and the chutin will not help you. Okay, and you're allowed to dismantle it as well. Shekol oil she'ein bo mishum binyan, ein bo mishum stira. Binyan and stira always go together. So if there's no binyan, there's no stira. V'chein ha'pareiches. Kol b'zeh gam villain shelifnei ha'pesach. Included in this is the villa in some sort of curtain which is covering an entrance. V'ayim b'magen Avraham tahai v'chein lav dafkahu. When it says v'chein b'hapareiches, it's lav dafka. T'shari b'zeh afal pi shehayu aleha chutin, because we permit it even if afal pi shelo hayu chutin, even if there weren't these chutin there. Mishum de'ein oihel ela ha'osu ke'in gag, because it's only a problem of an oil when there is a gag. However, the Bigdal Ois quotes Rabbeinu Chanana, "V'cheinu b'perish Rabbeinu Chanana shelefanenu sheyotza mikarav la'ar," and it also appears in the Rabbeinu Chanana that's just come out. Right? Can you imagine that? I think they found it possibly in England, no? In the Genizas in Oxford somewhere or Cambridge, they found the Rabbeinu Chananel. So it says the Chaim, we've just discovered the manuscripts of Rabbeinu Chananel, and it says over there the Pareiches Tamid Tzor Shechutzin Kruchin Oleh Me'er Shabbos Litlisbam. That with the Pareiches as well, the chutzin have got to be there for Erev Shabbos. Then Yosef Tov Lomed the Rambam Balalochazu Namis Velek Rabbeinu Chananel. That the Rambam, who is where the Mechaber gets this halacha from, is also of the same opinion of the Rabbeinu Chananel. Also Shapim Milas V'chein Kapashte, that the V'chein applies not only to this Talis Kafula but also to the Pareiches, and therefore V'chein fits in very nicely. V'chein Muchach Mebia Gradu Mefarish Kein. Achladina Ein Nafkamina Bezeh the Mukach Me'atur. They take on that you are allowed to put this sort of curtain on the front of it. Because this mechitza is not a halachic wool, but we spoke about that earlier in the week, that it's only a problem with the mechitza if it's a halachic wool, but not just some letznias ba'alma. So therefore, since this is not lahatir, it's not a halachic wool, ein shum isa Allah. Kosiyam Magen Avraham, the mechitza hatzuya lahatir, mechitza which is a halachic wool, which is coming to be matir something. For example, walking because you've created an area where it's to come to matir your sukkah, or tashmish hamitzin where there's lights, etc. Like we spoke about. Shepozak al shulchan aruch le'al b'sif aleph, the osel asus b'Shabbos, where you can't make a halachic wool. Hu afilu. That's true even if there were chutzin there on Erev Shabbos, and therefore you're just being moisif. Nevertheless, there are those who are mekel if there are chutzin there before Shabbos. Okay, so that is the talis kafula. Now we come across the kilas chasanim. Now this is a bit easier, this one, because you haven't got the gag tefach. You've got one pole across, and you've just got the slope coming down like that. Yeah, but the construction of what we're talking about is the 4-poster one. That was why it's a problem. It's el arai, and therefore it would be a problem. But if you've got the cover on top of it, if it's there already a tefach, then just to pull it along would be allowed. Okay, says the Mechaber in Yud Aleph. Kilas chasanim. So a canopy of a chasan, she'ein begaga tefach, which has not got a tefach at the top. Like I said, it's just a thin pole at the top. V'lo b'pachas mishleisha samach legaga richa tefach, and it doesn't come down very sharply like that. That within 3 tefachim you've got a tefach going across. Ha'il shehi musukenes lekach. Since that's how it is constructed, then mutal in toisa or mutal lefarka. You're allowed to set it up and to take it down. So long as it's not draping down like on the sides of the bed, lower down, because then you've got other problems. Okay, so let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Kilas chasanim, eitz echad, omed l'reish hamita. You've got one piece of wood which is across the top of the bed, gavoya me'amita, high up, well above the bed. V'chein omed eitz b'margolias hamita. You've got some wood at the bottom. So you've got a pole on one side. Here's your bed, this table, and you've got a pole over here and a pole over there, and one pole going across. So that's what he's just described. You've got eight echod omed dereish hamita, and one vertical on one side, and v'chein omed eitz margolis hamita, and then on the foot of the bed you've got another one, or moit nosan aleim, and then you've got a beam going across them, or parish ala moit vilein gadol. And then you've got sort of material, a blanket or whatever, some cloth going over the middle pole. Ushnei roshin yerdin mikan mikan kamin oil al pnei kol hamita. And then you've got an oil which is coming down over the bed. Hoil shehi musukenes. Since this is musukenes, you're allowed to do it. What does that mean? Pirush says Mishnah Berurah Mem Aleph. Since you prepared it like this in this fashion before Shabbos. And therefore, even if you haven't got the kruchim which were there before Shabbos, i.e. in the previous sif where it was considered to have been already open a tefach, and therefore you can extend it, even if you didn't have that, here would be okay. But if it wasn't constructed before Shabbos, you can't construct it on Shabbos. So even if it doesn't have a tefach, it doesn't mean you can make it on Shabbos. You can't make this thing on Shabbos, but but unless you've got the chutim which were there, then you wouldn't be able to make it. Now we're talking about the sort of the material which is hanging down the sides. So it hangs down. Where is this membase? Yeah, the very end of the Mechaber. V'hu sheloi teimu shuleshes me'alav mita tefach. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Membase, Dahatam kivin shimu shuleshes me'alav mita tefach bezkifa la'acha klois hashipua. That after it's sort of draping down, after it's gone slopey, it's sort of draping down the sides. Havelo hai tefach mechitza, because now it's a vertical. And now this tefach on the bottom is becoming a mechitza. V'chol hashipua mimal lemata nechshav legag. And you've got the roof, which is the slopey bit, and you've got a proper roof. Miu, mimita didon, our beds, she'ein kilo oleha, she'peris oleha sadin, avapi denochis mipurio tefach leslambo, but with us there's no problem, says the Mishnah Berurah, v'atam doh mashemunach alamita, lo mikri oil kivin she'ein chalal tachtov. Because in our bed, says the Mishnah Berurah, 100 years ago in Poland, there's no halal underneath it. And therefore there's not a problem. You've got like a block of wood or something. And therefore if it drapes down, it's just draping down on the sides, and that's not really a problem. Okay, so that's...
Basically anything that has got, as if it's a sloping thing and at the end it's got a
and you've got a halal underneath, which lechor, as we said yesterday, you're using it for something, then you've got a problem of mechitza, because you've got sides, and you've got a halal, and you've got a height of a tefach, and you've got a problem. And what, sorry? Our beds, yeah. Right. So the question is whether you're going to use it, and also where.
You can't use it underneath because it's like straight.
So it depends if it's straight. So it depends what's being used. So what's emerged really from this week is that, for example, a table, right? So if you've got a table and you put a tablecloth tonight, you put a table on the Shabbos tablecloth on, and it's draping down. We're not worried about that, because no one really uses the area underneath the table, as we said, and if you put your feet under that, that's not considered normal usage. But if you've got, it's like a storage unit, what were the examples we gave? not a table, but I forget. Earlier in the week we gave other examples of where you Shlomo Zalman contrasted it with something where you do use it, where you've got some storage space underneath. So then you've got a problem if you are using it for proper storage. But either way, what is emerged today is we make a distinction between the construction of the actual thing. If it's a talis kafula, which seems more like a four-poster, then you've got more of a problem. But if it's already considered open to tefach, then to stretch it along would be okay. And that's the same with canopies and things like that, where you've got a problem with a tefach. If it's open to tefach, you can open it up. And so too with the hood of a carriage we spoke about earlier in the week, of a baby carriage. But if you've got a kilas chasanim, which is one pole going across, then because it hasn't got a gag, that's easier. Then mutzal in tosim, mutzal paraka. Beseda. Okay, well let's leave it at that.